Teacher asks Billy a math question. Teacher, if you have $1 and you ask your dad for another dollar, how many dollars do you have? Billy, $1. Teacher, I'm sorry, Billy, it seems you don't know your math. Billy, I'm sorry, miss, it seems you don't know my dad. Returning home from work, a young woman was shocked to find that her house had been ransacked and burglarized. She telephoned the police at once and reported the crime. The police dispatcher broadcast the call on the channels, and a K-9 unit patrolling nearby was the first to respond. As the K-9 officer approached the house with his dog on a leash, the blonde woman ran out on the porch and shuddered at the sight of the cop and his dog. Then she sat down on the steps, put her face in her hands, and moaned, "I came home to find all my possessions stolen. I called the police for help, and what do? They sent me a blind policeman." A husband, feeling romantic on his business trip, texted his wife, "Hi, darling, I'm experiencing the best time of my life, and I wish you were her." He meant here. But now he's there, hiding behind hotel furniture, dodging angry emojis, and praying autocorrect gets subpoenaed. His wife, upon reading the message, didn't reply. She just sent a photo of her wedding ring, floating in a glass of wine. The poor man has filed for emotional asylum, hired a spelling coach, and is currently negotiating peace terms via his mother-in-law. A nurse walks into a bank exhausted after a 20-hour shift. She pulls a rectal thermometer out of her pocket and tries to write a check with it. She looks at the cashier and says, "Well, that's just great. Some asshole has my pen." Wife, "What the hell? Are you insane?" Me, "What? Why? I thought we agreed we're going to throw our sorrows overboard on this Caribbean cruise." Wife, "Yes, Dan, but that was my mother." When the baby was born, the mother-in-law frowned and said, "I don't mean to be rude, but he doesn't look anything like my son." The daughter-in-law calmly lifted her skirt and said, "And I don't mean to be rude either, but this is a vagina, not a bloody photocopier." A man marries a waitress from a Chinese restaurant. On their wedding night, she says, "Dear husband, I give you anything you want tonight. Just name it." He grins and says, "All right, I want a 69. She frowns and replies, "You want beef and broccoli now?" One day, a Marine decides to see the doc about a rash he has. "Doc, I was out in town a few weeks ago, and, well, I think I need to get checked out." "What's going on?" "Every now and then, I get this weird orange rash on my shaft. It's just kind of comes and goes." "Oh, that sounds serious. I mean, we will probably have to get you some penicillin and a few other things to take care of it. You said it comes and goes. About how often?" "It's weird. It only comes around when I eat Cheetos and watch porn." A woman goes to buy a parrot. The shopkeeper shows her 3, $100, $200, and one for $15. She asks, "Why's this one so cheap?" The shopkeeper shrugs. "Well, he used to live in a brothel." She laughs, pays $15, and takes the parrot home. When she sets him down, the parrot squawks, "F me, a new brothel." The woman cracks up. A few hours later, her 2 daughters get home. The parrot shouts, "F me, 2 new prozzies." The girls can't stop laughing. Later, the dad comes home. The parrot looks right at him and says, "F me, Pete, I haven't seen you in weeks." A junior high school was recently faced with a unique problem. A number of 12-year-old girls were beginning to use lipstick and would often press their lips against the bathroom mirror. This problem became so bad that the mirrors became almost unusable. Every night, Mr. Boudreau, the maintenance man, would remove the lipstick. And then, the next day, the girls would mess up the mirrors again. Finally, the principal decided that something had to be done. She called all the girls to the bathroom and met them there along with Mr. Boudreau. She explained that all these lip prints were causing a major problem for the maintenance man who had to clean the mirrors every night. To demonstrate how difficult it had been to clean up the mirrors, she asked Mr. Boudreau to show the girls how much effort was required to clean up the lipstick. He took out a long-handled squeegee, dipped it in the toilet, and then cleaned the mirrors with it. Since then, there have been no lip prints on the mirror. During a checkup, I asked my doctor, "How do you decide if an older person should be put in a care home?" He smiled and said, "We fill a bathtub, then we give them a teaspoon, a teacup, and a bucket, and ask them to empty it." "Oh, I get it," I said. "A normal person would use the bucket because it's the biggest, right?" "No," he replied. "A normal person would just pull the plug. Now, do you want a bed near the window?" A young blonde bride calls her mother, sobbing uncontrollably. "Mom, Robert doesn't appreciate anything I do for him." Her mother tries to soothe her. "Now, sweetheart, I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding." "No, Mom, you don't get it. I bought a frozen turkey roll, and he completely lost it over the price." Her mother scoffs. "That cheapskate." "Those turkey rolls only cost a few bucks." "No, Mom, it wasn't the price of the turkey. It was the airplane ticket." "Airplane ticket? Why on earth did you need a plane ticket?" "Well, the instructions said prepare from a frozen state, so I flew to Alaska." At the end of their first date, a young man takes his date home. Emboldened by the night, he decides to try for that important first kiss. With an air of confidence, he leans with his hand against the wall and, smiling, he says to her, "Darling, how about a goodnight kiss?" Horrified, she replies, "Are you mad? My parents will see us." "Oh, come on. Who's gonna see us at this hour?" "No, please." "Can you imagine if we get caught?" "Oh, come on, there's nobody around. They're all sleeping." "No way. It's just too risky." "Oh, please, please, I like you so much." "No, no, and no, I like you too, but I just can't." "Please." Out of the blue, the porch light goes on, and the girl's sister shows up in her pajamas, hair disheveled. In a sleepy voice, the sister says, "Dad says to go ahead and give him a kiss. Or I can do it, or if need be, he'll come down himself and do it. But for crying out loud, tell him to take his hand off the intercom button." A man hires a blonde woman to paint stripes down the center of a road with one simple condition. She must paint at least 4 miles every day to keep her job. On the first day, she blows everyone away by painting 8 miles. Her boss is impressed. On day 2, she paints 4 miles. Not as spectacular, but still enough to meet the goal. By the 3rd day, she only manages 2 miles. The boss raises an eyebrow, thinking maybe she's just having an off day. On day 4, she paints barely 1 mile. Frustrated, the boss finally asks, "What happened? You were doing so great. Why are you slowing down?" The blonde wipes her brow and says, "Well, the further I go, the farther I get from the paint bucket." One morning, a husband decided he would surprise his wife by cooking breakfast. He imagined a flawless omelet, golden toast, and perfectly brewed coffee, his culinary masterpiece. As soon as he stepped into the kitchen, though, his wife followed, unable to resist watching his rare attempt at cooking. "Are you sure you want to add that much milk?" she asked, eyebrows raised as he poured a generous splash into the egg mixture. "It's just a little extra fluffiness," he replied, shrugging it off, though he felt the first twinge of doubt. A minute later, she jumped in again. "Oh, wait! Don't forget the peppers. Not too much, though. And are you sure about that pan? It's a little big, isn't it?" "I think I got this," he assured her, though his confidence was waning fast. But as he cracked eggs into the pan, she leaned in closer. "Oh, be careful! You're scrambling too fast. The eggs will get rubbery. And don't forget the salt, or it'll be bland," she insisted, now watching his every move. His patience wearing thin, he took a deep breath and replied with a smile, "Sweetheart,
Would you like to do it?" She threw her hands up and shook her head. No, you're doing great." "I'll just stand over here." But her hovering continued, with gasps and little reminders that only added to his pressure. Finally, he paused, exasperated. "Honey, how about I show you what it feels like when I'm trying to fix things around the house and you're watching my every move?" She burst out laughing, realizing the irony. All right. "I get it. Go ahead, chef." And as they both laughed, he relaxed, focusing on cooking the perfect breakfast. His way. Drivers on Highway 65 couldn't believe their eyes Tuesday afternoon when a 97-year-old woman on a red lawnmower led police on a 22-mile slow-speed pursuit. It all began when officers tried to pull her over for driving on the shoulder. Instead of stopping, she hit the gas and took off, reaching a blistering 8 miles per hour. Soon, multiple patrol cars, motorcycle units, and even a helicopter joined the chase as she weaved between lanes and drifted onto the grass median. Traffic slowed to a crawl as stunned drivers watched the surreal scene unfold. Officers finally boxed her in near an exit ramp, but not before the woman reportedly shouted, "I was just out for a drive!" Thankfully, no one was hurt, though a few police cars did suffer dents and scratches in the chaos. Authorities say she's now undergoing a mental health evaluation. My husband and I went through the McDonald's drive-thru. I handed the cashier $5 for a $4.25 bill, plus another quarter so she could just give me $1 back. She looked confused and said, "You gave me too much." I explained, "It's easier this way. You just give me $1. She sighed and called the manager. He returned the quarter and said, "Sorry, we don't do that kind of thing." Then the cashier gave me 75 cents in change. Math 1, McDonald's 0. A repairman came to fix our garage door. He said the motor was too weak. I told him we had the biggest one available, a 1/2 horsepower. He shook his head and said, "You need a 1/4 horsepower?" 4 is bigger than 2. We haven't called him back since. Our new neighbor called City Hall to request the removal of the deer crossing sign. His reason? Too many deer are getting hit here. I don't think this is a good place for them to cross. Apparently, deer should use safer intersections. My daughter ordered a taco and asked for minimal lettuce. The guy behind the counter said, "Sorry, we only have iceberg." Cool logic. At the airport, they asked me, "Has anyone put anything in your luggage without your knowledge?" I said, "If it was without my knowledge, how would I know?" The employee smiled and nodded. That's why we ask. Security theater at its finest. A coworker asked what the beeping sound at the crosswalk was for. I said, "It helps blind people know when it's safe to cross." She gasped, "Wait, blind people are driving?" She works for the government. We went to pick up our car from the service shop. They told us the keys were locked inside. A mechanic was working hard to unlock the driver's side. I casually tried the passenger door. It was open. I said, "Hey, this side's unlocked." He replied, "I know. I already did that side efficiency at work. Stay sharp. They walk among us. They vote. They breed, and sometimes they fix your garage." A flight crew was coming in to land at an unfamiliar airport. As they lined up on final approach, the pilot squinted out the window. Pilot: "Does that runway look short to you?" Co-pilot: "Yeah, they're definitely shorter than expected." Pilot: "I was sure it was supposed to be longer than that." Co-pilot: "Same here." "You sure we're at the right place?" The tension grew as they got closer. Pilot: "All right, full flaps." Co-pilot: "Full flaps set." Pilot:
Be ready with the thrust reversers the moment we touch down. Co-pilot, standing by. Pilot, and I mean full brakes the second we're on the ground. Co-pilot, copy that. They came in hot but steady. The wheels touched down hard, brakes locked up, thrust reversers roaring, rubber screeched, and they came to a halt just barely before the end of the runway. Pilot, man, that was tight. Definitely one of the shortest runways I've ever landed on. Co-pilot, yeah, no kidding. Pauses. But you gotta admit, it's the widest one we've ever seen. An 82-year-old Florida grandma, known around her neighborhood for being tough as nails, went grocery shopping on a sweltering Tuesday afternoon. When she came out, bags in hand, she saw 3 big men loading her groceries into her car. Outraged, she dropped her bread and milk, reached into her oversized handbag, and pulled out her trusty .38 revolver she lovingly calls Betsy. Waving it high, she yelled, "Step away from my Buick, or Betsy's gonna sing!" The men looked at each other once and bolted like Olympic sprinters, leaving the trunk open and groceries half loaded. Feeling quite proud of herself, Grandma shoved her bags in, climbed into the driver's seat, and immediately noticed something odd. The driver's seat was pushed so far back, her feet couldn't touch the pedals. The radio was blasting gangster rap, and in the cup holder, a half-empty can of Red Bull. She muttered, "Huh, I don't drink anything with wings." After struggling with the ignition for 5 minutes, she suddenly spotted her actual car parked 3 spaces over, complete with her crocheted steering wheel cover and Jesus air freshener dangling from the mirror. Mortified, she quickly moved her groceries, got in the right car, and drove straight to the police station to confess her accidental carjacking. The desk sergeant nearly fell out of his chair laughing. He pointed across the room at 3 terrified men filing a police report. Their story? A tiny old lady with glasses and white curls threatened us with a gun and stole our snacks. No charges were filed. Grandma went home with her groceries and a brand new nickname at the station, the Lethal Nana of Lot 7. A woman strolls into a fancy New York bank and asks to borrow $200. The banker raises an eyebrow and says, "We'll need collateral." Without blinking, she hands over the keys to her shiny Porsche. The banker thinks, unbelievable, risking a Porsche for just $200? But accepts and parks it in the secure, climate-controlled garage. 2 weeks later, the woman returns, repays the loan with $5 interest, and asks for her car back. Still puzzled, the banker finally asks, "Why would someone like you need such a small loan?" She grins and says, "Because I just got 2 weeks of safe parking in Manhattan for $5. Jane and Roy had been married for 40 years. They lived frugally and never had any children. Everything they owned was paid for. Roy kept all of his money in cash at home. He always talked about how he was going to take his money with him when he died, always saying he wanted all of his money put into his casket with him when he died. When the day came, Jane was the grieving bride. At his viewing, all of their friends and neighbors came to wish her well and pay their respects. Right before they closed the casket, Jane walked up to the casket, whispered some words, and put an envelope into Roy's jacket. Her friend asked her what that was about. Jane reminded her of what Roy always said he wanted, all of his money in his casket with him. Jane rounded up the money, put it into her checking account, and wrote Roy a check for every last penny. Lawyer asks an elderly woman, a question in court, but he never expected this response. In a small-town trial, a Southern prosecuting attorney called his first witness, an elderly grandmother, to the stand. He approached her and asked, "Mrs. Jones, do you know me?" She replied, "Why, yes, I do know you, Mr. Williams. I've known you since you were a boy, and frankly, you've been a big disappointment. You lie, you cheat on your wife, you manipulate people, and you talk about them behind their backs.
You think you're a big shot, but you don't have the brains to realize you'll never amount to more than a 2-bit paper pusher. Yes, I know you. The lawyer was stunned. Not knowing what else to do, he pointed across the room and asked, "Mrs. Jones, do you know the defense attorney?" She calmly replied, "Why, yes, I do. I've known Mr. Bradley since he was young, too. He's lazy, arrogant, and has a drinking problem. He can't build a normal relationship with anyone, and his law practice is one of the worst in the state. Not to mention he cheated on his wife with 3 different women. One of them was your wife." "Yes, I know him." The defense attorney nearly fainted. The judge quietly called both lawyers to the bench and said in a low voice, "If either of you idiots asks her if she knows me, I'll have you both sent to the electric chair." A mother was concerned about her young son walking to school. However, the boy didn't want his mother to walk with him. She wanted to give him the feeling that he had some independence, but also that he was safe. However, she had an idea of how to handle it. So she asked a neighbor if she would please follow him to school in the mornings, staying at a distance, so he probably wouldn't notice her. She said that since she was up early with her daughter anyway, it would be a good way for them to get some exercise as well, so she agreed. The next school day, the neighbor and her little girl set out following behind Timmy as he walked to school with another neighbor's girl he knew. She did this for the whole week. As the 2 kids walked and chatted, kicking stones and twigs, Timmy's little friend noticed the same lady was following them as she seemed to do every day all week. Finally, she said to Timmy, "Have you noticed that lady following us to school all week?" "Do you know her?" Timmy nonchalantly replied, "Yeah, I know who she is." The little girl said, "Well, who is she?" "That's just Shirley Goodness," Timmy replied, "and her daughter Marcy." "Shirley Goodness. Who is she and why is she following us?" "Well," Timmy explained, "every night my mom makes me read the 23rd Psalm with my prayers, 'cause she worries about me so much. And in the Psalm it says, 'Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life.' So I guess I'll just have to get used to it. May surely goodness and mercy be with you today and always."